right, so several of you ladies have asked us to share our story about Rwanda. So I invited some friends here with us tonight. Lauren Franco, who was on the trip with us, her mother Annette, who's in the study, and Valerie Neely, who's also in our study. So give them a big hand if you would. So before we start, I'd like to show you a few pictures of what Rwanda was like. Maybe. There we go. So this is the team that went, all 17 of us, ladies. And Scott, I'm just going to have you just go through them. So when we got there, you know, one of the things that we needed to be reminded of, and we went here on our very first day there, is that while we know about the genocide, it didn't really at least hit me until I was there how recently that happened. So everybody that we met that was over 25 years old probably lived through it, came back to Rwanda, had memories that they've got to live with the rest of their lives, but found forgiveness. So this is one of the genocide memorials, and you can see at that one location there were 250,000 Rwandese buried there. So this is just one of the places we stayed. I have a very special memory of that big staircase. Lauren knows this. I couldn't help but put it there. I did a little tumble down those stairs, so I had to include that. And then we had the very nice surprise of finding out that the Neely family was going to join us for a good portion of this. So see them walking to one of their home visits. We visited a lot of different churches and saw pastors. I loved the bright colors. And at the bottom we have a group that is their lay counselors involved in orphan care. Home visits, they loved having their pictures taken because they don't have mirrors. They really love seeing what it looked like on their phone. So this just gives you a little clue of what that's like. And then this was our last day, and we'll talk a little more about that young man in red, but they had a whole area work day. And so everybody goes to work, and we got to participate in that. I think Lauren and I both had the hoe in our hands at one point, but I thought I'd just share a little of that with you before we started talking. So I'm going to share a few things that are my really deepest memories of Rwanda, and then ask these ladies to do the same thing. You know, the first home visits that I went on, and Nancy, who's in the back of the room, was also with that group. We visited a woman who was a genocide survivor. She was HIV positive. She was living in a very dark little room in an area that was for widows. They'd built this whole little, for lack of a better term, apartment area for widows. Her neighbors were taking care of her. She was no longer on her medication because she needed to go to the hospital for that and didn't want to die in the hospital. And I'll tell you, ladies, we were pretty sure that she wouldn't make it through the next day. And it was devastating for us. So when we came back, Nancy and I had some conversation with Elizabeth Stipe and with Beth and Beth Schwartz, and we said, you know, the local church is involved here. Isn't there some way we can do something to get this woman to the hospital? So we actually made arrangements to go back. We gathered up a lot of lotion and toothbrushes and not used, toothbrushes and toothpaste and just little items. And we went back to see her. Her name was Godavera. And we asked her if we could put lotion on her body. So we spent probably 45 minutes or more there with her, just rubbing her body with lotion, praying with her. Her largest concern in life was that she couldn't forgive her attackers. And during the genocide, she'd been raped multiple times. She was 7 months pregnant, and they had killed her infant inside of her. And it did enough damage that she could not have other children. She was in a lot of pain. And because of the attack and a bite, she was HIV positive. So We talked with the young woman who was with us and from the local church, and she committed to us to go back, this was on a Friday night, the following Monday, and see if she couldn't talk her into going to the hospital. So before we left, so lowest of lows, ladies, we found out that indeed she did go to the hospital. She was back on meds, she was on pain medication, she was doing much better. But the part that was most touching was that she shared with those at the hospital that she already felt much better because of the medicine that her Christian sisters had rubbed all over her body. So just, broke our hearts, but then we saw by just taking a little extra step and working with the local church what we could do. The little boy that you saw in red at the end who loved Lauren, loved Ashley, who is here tonight as well, has very good taste, by the way. I'm not sure you could tell from the picture, but he has Down syndrome. And he was taken by his mother, left in the forest, and lived as a wild animal for years until the local church found him. And they brought him in. The whole community adopted him. He lived with one of the women in the church. She taught him how to socialize. She bought clothes for him. She got him to the doctor. She taught him to speak. And he loved everybody. And every time he would come over and put his arm around somebody, it was generally Lauren or Ashley, I have to admit, the whole community there stopped what they were doing, building this little road, to get pictures and laugh. They just loved him. So there's so many things the local church has done there, and that's what I took away most. I have all these amazing memories, but what really jumps out at me is the difference a local church can make. So we'll talk a little bit more of that, but I wanted to let these ladies share their stories. So Lauren and I were kind of the bookends. Lauren was, who by the way, is now intern for women's ministry, so you'll see a lot of her at women's events. We want to welcome her. Lauren is 19, and I'm not 19. So it was the great-grandma on one end and Lauren on the other, and we were the bookends. So Lauren, tell me a little bit about what you were concerned about before you went, what happened when you got there, how God spoke to you, and do it from the perspective of being the youngest one there.
I think before I went, there wasn't a lot of concern over what we were going to do. I think Saddleback equips you really well, so you're prepared with what you're going to teach. And I think I was more concerned about getting sick or not having packed enough. But I felt really secure in what we were teaching and the message that we were bringing and just the way that the peace plan functions. But when you go, you see the peace plan in a completely new light and you see it working, and it's absolutely incredible. I was concerned, but I prayed for it, so I can't be upset at getting my heart broken. And I asked God to break my heart for Rwanda and for the people there and for different ministries that we were working with, and He did over and over and over again. And I wasn't prepared to fall in love with the people the way that we did. I wasn't prepared to fall in love with the country the way that we did. I wasn't prepared for the way that the genocide runs through the entire country still. It's part of nearly everyone's story, and it wasn't that long ago, so it's just their devastation is still very recent. But I think the most impactful thing that I witnessed on the trip was the power of the church. I mean, that is not an understatement. It was obviously Rwanda suffered. There were nearly 1 million people killed in the genocide, but seeing what the church is now and how forgiving and how loving their body of Christ is absolutely amazing. And it's like, well, how did they get from what they were to what they are now? And when I got there, God was like, well, the great commandment is going to be important. And I'm like, okay, great. And as time went on, I was like, oh, that's the answer. The word neighbor stuck out to me in the great commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. And I think the fact of the matter is, if they would have tried to love their neighbor first, after everything that had happened, it wouldn't have worked. There was too much that they were up against. There was so much hate and devastation and loss and grief, and so they sought God. And so the church opened its doors, and they the people there got to know God's heart, and they sought to love the Lord with all their heart and all their mind and all their soul. And once they knew God's heart and loved God's heart, they saw that God's heart is forgiveness and God's heart is grace. And then they were able to love their neighbor again. And I just thought that was absolutely incredible. But the peace plan works because it glorifies the local church. It wasn't like Saddleback going in and being like, we are Saddleback. It was like, no, we're going to go and we're going to work with the churches there. And they are working in a way that I have never seen. They're shutting down orphanages like it's nobody's business. We visited one church that had adopted like 39 children into families. And now there are more parents in that church that want to adopt than there are kids in the nearest orphanage. So that's incredible. And that's just simply by the fact that the church is mobilized to adopt, and they're changing the world because of it. And it's simply the gospel just explained in terms of we're adopted into God's family, and there's a legal aspect to it because you can't get out. You have a permanent home with Christ, and they understand that, and they're moved to bring children into their family, and that was incredible. The way that they're working with HIV and people with AIDS so that they can end, you can get to 0 of people dying of AIDS is absolutely incredible. And God spoke to me a lot on this trip, I think both audibly and just through what we were seeing. I think one of the biggest things that he kind of gave me were 2 words, two kind of lighthearted and resilient. And that was kind of a call to shed my lighthearted faith and to take on a more resilient one. And just because what we were seeing and what we were witnessing was not lighthearted, it was emotional, and it was difficult. And it is difficult, and I think God just kind of moved through that and was like, nothing about me is lighthearted. I'm a God that requires a faith that is resilient and strong and doesn't put me in a box. And when I think of resilience, I think of armor, which you guys are learning about, the armor of God. And I think about just getting hit over and over and over again and not falling and just getting stronger. And I just encourage you guys to use what you've learned about the armor of God and take that into battle with you, and take it and ask God where he wants you to go, and step out in faith and be obedient to the call. Because the Great Commission isn't subject to one gender or one age group. It's all of us. We're all called to go and make disciples of all nations. And whether that means going to Rwanda or whether it means supporting a family here, we're all called to go. And I think another way that he kind of spoke into just the way I was feeling about my age, because I was a baby compared to all the rest of these women who are leaders in our church. Orly was Orly was there. We're safe, we're good, because she was just that mother figure on our trip. But I felt really inadequate. Even before the trip, Satan was just punching me over and over again with just feelings of inadequacy and you're not good enough, you don't have any wisdom, you're not on staff here, what are you doing? And I felt that way a lot on the trip, and it just kind of hit a breaking point at one point where I was just at my lowest. And I had to do the devotional the next day, and I was like, I just want to go to bed. And we had all been assigned different women of the Bible to do a devotional on, and I was like, okay, great, I have to write this devotional, I just want to sleep. And mine was Mary, the mother of Jesus. And God just kind of hit me with her age. And Mary was a teenager when she was asked to do possibly the most honorable task of all, which was carry the Messiah inside of her. And Mary's response, and I love this, is just, let it be to me according to your word. And she just says yes, and she's just obedient. And God met me with, I don't choose based on age, but obedience. And that's what he values more. And so I think that applies to all ages. It's not how old you are, how young you are. It's, are you obedient to the call? Are you obedient in stepping out in faith and trusting where God is leading and trusting where God is tugging on your heart and breaking your heart? And that was just a really neat way, and one of the many ways that he met me on this trip. And I got to share that in the devotional the next day, which was really cool.
Very special.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I just encourage you to be obedient and listen to where God is leading you.
Thank you. One of the things, please. A couple of things you mentioned there. we started every day and we ended every day with feeling words. And it sounds trite maybe, but it meant so much to us as a group. When we get to Valerie, we'll let her share. She doesn't remember her son's. I remember it every day, and amazing. But it did make you really take a step back and say, how is this impacting me? And see how our experiences were impacting others in the group. She talked about the very special church that has helped empty orphanages in Western Rwanda. And because of what has been done there through that local church, and working with us through that church, they've asked us to work with local churches in another area of Rwanda now to do the same thing. So it's going to spread. The government recognized that the church can do this, and there are other nonprofits and they're trying to do the same thing. They've not had the same success, so it's really all about the local church.
The government realized that not even the government could do it.
Right,
So
exactly,
they asked the church to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear from you on what it was like to hear your 19-year-old daughter say, I want to travel halfway across the world, Mom, with all these women that you didn't really know, and how you felt about it, what you felt while she was there, and then listening to her amazing story when she has come back, what that's done for you.
Okay. Lauren always wanted to go on a mission trip, and when this opportunity came, and we knew that she was going to be the youngest and that she was going to be with all these wonderful women leaders at Saddleback, we knew that this was the trip and this was God's timing. But she only had 2 weeks to fundraise, and so this was all new to us because we hadn't been before. So we thought, how is this going to work? And Lauren's answer was, God will provide. And so Lauren sent out, her letters, personalized them to all our friends and extended family. And I'm involved at Treasured Moms, which is a Wednesday Bible study, and I've been there for 10 years. So there have been women who've been praying for Lauren since she was little and knew her. And so everybody reached out, and when little envelopes would start coming in the mail, she would look at me and she'd say, see, Mom, God's providing. And she ended up being overfunded, which was a blessing because that money went to help somebody else. And so we knew that this was really all in God's plan for her to go. So when she was there, the thing that really helped us along was just the prayer that we got and just the support from family and friends and Treasured, our small group, all of the Bible study here, and all of Saddleback Church, because everybody was talking about this group of women that were going and covering them in prayer, and we really felt it. There were days when there was internet, but we weren't hearing from her in a consistent basis because they were in so many different places. And so when we were worried or we didn't know where she was or we hadn't heard from her, out of nowhere I'd get a text from someone just saying, how's Lauren? How are you? I'm praying for her. I just want you to know I'm praying for her. And it just touched us. It blessed us. And, it really was amazing to see the support. The other thing that we loved was every day Saddleback Women was posting pictures of where they were and what they were doing and the stories. And so we got to join in and see and to feel a part of it and to understand and, just mourn and tears and joy and all of the things that she was feeling, we were feeling from a long distance because Saddleback was so good about putting it out there so that we knew where she was and what they were doing. And that was amazing and wonderful too. I'm not going to lie, her going and having the vaccines and hearing yellow fever and typhoid. We had live typhoid virus in our refrigerator. She was taking malaria pills. The nurse, scared us with being covered from head to toe and mosquito netting and all these things. And I sent her, as moms do, with an entire medicine chest full of medicines to take care of anything that could possibly happen. But having Oralee there, and they came up to me and they were like, "She is completely taken care of. We're the moms here to help her." But so we kind of laugh about that because I think I covered her in everything she could possibly need. But I don't know, it was just watching her and just hearing from her. We knew, knowing Lauren, that it wasn't a matter of, her going back again. It was a matter of how many of those sweet children she'd be bringing back with her. My husband and I were convinced, and once we saw pictures of her with them, we knew that, God was really tugging on her heart. But, and then coming back, people had warned us, they said, just give her time because she's not going to be able to talk about it. And I'm the mom who always says, okay, tell me everything. And she wasn't ready to tell me everything. She was tired. She was jet lagged. She was grappling with her emotions of coming back here and coming back to Orange County and seeing all that we have here and compared to what she had just witnessed. And so we had to let her unpack it. And it's just starting now that she's getting her smile back and she's, able to share. So we're seeing the stories, we're hearing the stories, we're seeing the photos, we are watching the videos that she took, and we are laughing with her at the joy, and we're also, in sad and in mourning of a lot of the things that they witnessed that we, can't even understand. But we can tell that it's definitely impacted her. And I would just say to you, everybody's in a different season and maybe can't go on a trip, but as much as you can support someone that is going or letting your child, venture out, I think that's what's been amazing. And just to see her obedience and her walk with God is really the biggest reward we can have as a parent. And Pastor Rick said one time, stepping out in faith really opens up the door and lets God, be prepared to work a miracle. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
You can't underestimate the just that feeling that we had, knowing how covered we were in prayer. It is a little scary going across to another culture, another world, and then you see things that you can't even imagine, and you see people going through those things with smiles and joy, and that's a little hard to take in. It was for me anyway. I've come back and thought, how is it that the little things bother me, and they live in a place that has a dirt floor, and there's 7 children in there, and there's no running water, and they're happy, and they're smiling, and they're joyful. And so the emotion is really difficult at times. You really hit on that, but knowing while we were there that we were covered in prayer really helps us get through that too. So thank you. So Valerie, I think I shared with some of you ladies that initially I was going on a trip during the summer, and I was going with a group that was a family and some others, and I was pretty excited about what it was going to be like to see Rwanda and another country through the eyes of a child. And for a variety of reasons, the timing didn't work, and so this trip came up, and I can't tell you how excited I was when Valerie and her family came walking. I found out they were going to do part of this trip with us. So I would love to hear you share with us what it was like as a family to decide to go to Rwanda, what it was like while you were there. You can share Ethan's feeling word if you want to. And then I know you've got some big plans too, so if you would.
Okay. So, of course, going out, when my biggest concern was, where is my family spiritually? Because obviously we're taking a faith step. My husband and I decided to go on this trip, but it's not just about, since we're bringing our kids, it wasn't just about us. It's, okay, where are our kids spiritually? Because when you take such a big faith step, the enemy can come in at any different points. So we just wanted to make sure that as a family together, we were growing together in the Lord, and everyone was doing what they need to do to prep themselves spiritually. So just a little background: my daughter's 10, turning 11, and then my son is 8. So they're still pretty little, but. Of course, when we're asking Ethan, my youngest, what are your concerns? And about the trip, and he said, well, I don't want to get eaten by lions and tigers and bears, and I don't want to travel by wagon. And so I had to explain to him, okay, there aren't any lions or tigers or bears where you're gonna go. There's actually, some running water, and he was like, they have toilets? And so it was just like an educational piece, because I think what he was thinking was the Lion King when we said we're going to Africa. But so the main concern for me was really just, I know there's all the health stuff, but that wasn't really a concern of mine. My main concern was, where is our family spiritually? But God really conditioned the kids for the trip. As a family, we've been going previously to several different local peace trips, whether it be in the Navajo Reservation in New Mexico or down in Baja. But those experiences actually taught our children and prepped them ahead of time before the trip, so I wasn't worried about their interactions with other people. And the main thing that, because I'm kind of speaking for all four of us, so for me and my daughter, the thing that impacted us the most were the house visits. Our family went to the same location that the women's group went, but on a different day. And when you're doing the house visits, it is a huge reality check, because you go into this room, this really small room made out of mud, and there's absolutely nothing in there. And it was, I guess it was raining a little bit, and you could see where the leaks were, and there are children who are sitting on the floor next to mud. And it was just really difficult to see their living conditions and everything like that. But I was, with all the emotions of just, okay, well, these are the harsh realities, it was also very encouraging to see this is what the church is doing, and this is who we're partnering with, and the church leaders are doing such an amazing job of taking the training that they're getting from these small 2-week trips, and really soaking in all the training and advice and taking it out into the community. And that just amazed us. And I think for my husband and my son, the biggest thing that impacted them was when we visited a church that was feeding these homeless young men. And it was difficult for my husband because many of them were around his age. And to truly see them malnourished and struggling and seeing true pain in their eyes, and there's nothing you could do about it. And you could literally, we know what it means to say skin and bones. It was literally skin and bones on those men. And, my husband, when we got back to where we were staying, he kind of broke down emotionally. But we were also encouraged because Saddleback is partnering with their church. And it was just one of those things where, even though you can't do something immediately at that point, you know that by partnering with the local church, you're bringing something that's sustainable. And it was just so amazing to hear how many ways that our church partnering with the other churches has impacted them. And as far as what God was really teaching me during that time, I know my table, my small group, knows, woo! My small group knows the emotional roller coaster that I went through. I definitely felt, like Lauren said, inadequate. I had my daughter when I was 16 years old. I have no education. I've worked very, very hard to try and not live up to the statistics of a normal teenage mom, which is poverty, and that my daughter also will be a teen mom, and there's just so many other statistics that go with that. But I guess I just I lost my train of thought. But I guess it was hard for me to feel like I had anything to offer. And I don't know if any of you guys feel like that when you think, oh, going on missions, I don't have, I don't have any background in medicine, I don't have background in social working or anything like that, but there's always something that you have to offer. And sometimes you just need to answer God's call and the pulls that he's placing on your heart to see what that really is. And if I hadn't, I wouldn't have known what God's plan is. And really, this study of Armor of God couldn't have come at a more perfect time in my life and for this mission. I mean, really just equipping yourself and going out there and not just being a bystander. I think what prompted this whole trip was that my husband and I were sitting here in Saddleback, and I forgot what they were doing, but they were going over the many countries that Saddleback had gone to. And I think I finally realized, wow, I'm sitting here in an amazing church who does so many amazing things, but I'm not getting involved. And what's so amazing about Saddleback is that everyone has something to offer. That's right. No matter who you are, no matter what stage in life you're in, or if you feel like you have whatever position your family is in, there's always something to offer. And I think that's the biggest thing that God's been teaching me. And also having that small group to help me get through that time of just feeling so low, and when I was being attacked by the enemy, telling me that I have nothing to offer and that this isn't for me, my small group was there. And they encouraged me and said, no, God used you. God is using you. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So she's right. We all can be used, and we all went there feeling like we had nothing to offer. Saddleback did a great job of equipping us. When we went, we really didn't know exactly what we'd be doing. It was a little different than some mission trips because it was the women's leadership team, and we were looking for ways that we could help as we move forward. Talk about intimidating. I actually got to teach 101, and Valerie was there too. And the host pastor, we had 40 pastors in the room, so I'm teaching pastors about 101, salvation, baptism. And the pastor that was leading this is a master PD trainer. So it was a little intimidating, ladies, but we decided that we would hit on small groups. There must have been 15 minutes of questions on small groups. They are so interested in the things that we're doing here and how they can use those things in their country to connect and care for their people. A couple of the things that I would mention is, we teach about HIV and AIDS and how you can't get it and how you can get it and how you can care for people, how you can support people. Whether it's just making a phone call to say, are you taking your meds today? Because as we know, it's important that they stay on their medication. We teach orphan care. We teach how to take care of children that have been traumatized. All of those things are taught, and we all, as we go into this training here, think, I can never teach that there. But you know what? You get there, and the Lord says, yes, you can, and you do it. So we were so blown away by the people of Rwanda. As Lauren said, I certainly wasn't prepared for how much I would fall in love with that country and how much I would fall in love with those people. So let's thank them. I've got a really short video I'm going to show you, and then I've got a tiny bit more to go through. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you.